Next up on the to-do list is this tractor seat. Now, for the most part, it's in decent shape. It doesn't have tears, or it's not ripped or anything like that. It is a little bit old. It's got a little weather crack into it. But the thing I have a concern about is the way it's mounted. As you can see, it is utilizing a block of wood. Along with the wood, it looks like there's a couple wood screws holding it in, and then a couple bolts. And it kind of sits a little funky inside the fenders. Now, the ergonomics of this thing are terrible, because as you can see, it kind of has a lean towards the back. So what you end up doing is you're leaned back, but then you're kind of hunched over the steering wheel, and if you're operating the front end loader, you're hunched over even more to the controls over here. And it took a lot of getting used to for myself. And I don't really consider myself like a tall person, so maybe that's what it was intended for. It does have some adjustment right there, basically if you wanted to scoot up forward, but it's not really an issue of scooting up forward. It's the way it leans back. So we got a new seat. It's actually a suspension seat, and as soon as I clean this shop up from all the other stuff that I've been doing, we're gonna go do a little unboxing. Here's my new seat. I picked it up at Tractor Supply. It's an adjustable suspension seat, and I kind of went all out, the whole 99 bucks that I paid for it. Tractor Supply still sells them, but they now sell them under their country line. This guy is a let's see here. Ah, yes, black Talon seat. But I paid about 100 bucks for it. It was the same price pretty much all over the internet for the same thing. I bought this when I bought the implement, so it's been sitting here for a long time. It comes with the seat, the suspension. It's got a little shock absorber kind of in there. You can see that guy. Some springs for holding the weight. It even has a kind of an adjustment there for how soft or firm you want it. And it does have a little slider. You'll just operate this knob to slide it back and forth. I went ahead and took the slider portion, the base plate, out of it. In order to do that, you need to go ahead and take this little screw out as per the sticker. You really want to put that back in after you got your seat installed in your tractor. But let's see what we got on the tractor side of things. Taking the seat out was a pretty simple thing because it just had this one pin holding the whole thing on. So you didn't really want to hit the brakes that hard, or you're going to go flying into the steering wheel. Next up was this little tool rack, this little cubby hole. I am going to kind of miss this guy. I really haven't used it all that much because my pins were in pretty good shape. But it was a nice place to keep a pair of like needle nose pliers and a screwdriver and whatnot. But take those out. You just had 4 bolts there. Go ahead and open that guy up. Now for the mounting plate for the new seat, we're going to have to drill new holes. For as many holes that are already on this guy for a universal fit, it fits nothing on my tractor. So first thing I noticed was for this little knob right here that sticks up for the lifting arms, I had to go ahead and use the rotary air file, kind of make that guy a little bigger. And then from eyeballing it, we're just going to have to go ahead and drill ourselves some new holes. The new holes are going to be somewhere about right here, and then like right here and right here. I will have to notch the back of this because I've already kind of experimented by kind of lifting up on the arms here. I'll show you. So we're going to have to do a little clearancing on this side and this side. But I know it's probably a little overkill for a seat, but I think it's going to turn out nice and we should be able to make this work. One other place that I'm probably going to have to cut out is this seat completely covers my control for the lifting and lowering speeds. I don't really use it that much, but I'm not sure how it's going to work when we get the seat all in, if it's going to be in the way, if I'm even going to reach it at all. I may go ahead and cut this out. We have a couple options, and if I have to, I can always lift this seat up using some washers for spacers. But I don't think we're going to need to at this time. I am kind of concerned about how tall this seat is going to be. But at least I know it's going to be taller than the seat I had in it. So, like I said, I can always lift it up, but I am concerned about the overall height of the seat. So we're going to see how this is going to turn out. This may bite me in the butt, or it's going to turn out great. So once again, I had the conundrum of trying to figure out how I was going to transfer the bolt pattern from this guy to the new seat bracket. So I screwed the bolts back in, and then I put some grease on the top of them, and it turned out okay. It wasn't very accurate at all. But then I realized I had a perfectly good template in the old toolbox. Now for some reason this toolbox was offset, but I think it was going to be okay. I went ahead and transferred it as best I could onto this plate here. Got my holes all drilled out. And the plate's on. It's getting ready to be bolted down. I had to oversize the holes just a little bit for my alignment issues, and I had to grind just a little bit more on this side here to make that guy fit. I believe it's because this thing is actually a little bit offset, but for the most part this guy lines up pretty good with the rest of the tractor. I'm kind of just referencing the like the transmission tunnel there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this bolted on. I went ahead and clearanced my lifting arms, probably a little bit more than I need to, but I just wanted to cut once and be done. And hopefully that that doesn't screw me here in the long run. But we're going to try to slide the seat on. Okay, I got the seat slid back on. It was a little tricky doing it. I ended up having to take my PTO lift arms down, and of course, since I still don't have the screen in yet, it made a nice little puddle there at the bottom that I'm soaking up as we speak. The safety chains had to be disconnected to let them go down as far as they could. I may have messed up by cutting off that other link. I'm just gonna have to mess around with it. I may end up having to do like some additional holes to my brackets to kind of find the sweet spot of them being able to work properly between up and down, depending on what the situation calls for. But anyway, back to the seat. So the seat has these little plastic bushings that it rides on the rails, and those were a little tricky to get lined up and slid back on, but I got it done. One thing I will say is that because I was doing so much drilling and everything, I ended up wiping all the grease that was on there, so I put some new stuff on to get it done. I also ended up wedging a piece of cardboard underneath the lever here because I didn't want it to grab, but I think we can get rid of that now, and there it goes, it locks into place. Now the little warning tag is telling me to go ahead and put that bolt back in, so I think that's what I'm going to do, and then we're going to put the padding on, see how this thing turns out. So here's where we're at so far. I'm a little worried about how close it is, but there is still some adjustment that I can do on these guys right here, and I have it slid back as far as it will go that I'm really comfortable with. As you can kind of see inside there, the sliders are just starting to come off the rails where I did that trimming. Looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have trimmed as much. The lifting arms aren't going to go straight up and down, but yeah, that's, hindsight's always 20/20. One thing that is kind of nice about this seat is that the way the padding mounts is that you have these elongated holes right here, and the seat and the bolts slip through, and then you go down, which is good because they Loctite them. And I just spent the last like 10 minutes unscrewing them, thinking that I needed to go ahead and do that, then put the seat over and then put them in through the holes, but they make it a lot simpler for you. There isn't a whole lot of clearance underneath that seat. You got these brace bars right here, but you can reach it with a socket and a ratchet and extension, and they were nice enough to go ahead and do some punch outs for the back plate so that we can get these other ones mounted on. I'm going to go ahead and mount this the back pad, and then I'm going to play with the adjustment down here a little bit, and we're going to see how it rides. Okay, there it is in all its glory. It is set up. Hopefully whenever I get this thing started again, we don't have any clearance issues, or I don't end up ejecting myself out with the lifting arms of the 3-point hitch. It is a little bit of a tight fit getting in there, but once you're sitting down in it, everything's pretty accessible. Unfortunately, that's as far as it goes back. I mean, even if I hadn't cut those rails out, to slide it back any further, then it would definitely hit those guys right there as they're coming up. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. It's going to work for me. I don't know if it's going to work for anybody that's bigger than me, as in wider. So it's a little tight right here. You slip on in it, and you're good to go. With it being up higher like this, it actually works out pretty well because you can see over past your hood and figure out what your bucket's doing up front. So I think overall, this is pretty nice. Now I'll show you here in a second the adjustment, the little sticker that tells you where you're supposed to set it for how much you weigh. I think right now I just have it completely bottomed out about for like 110 pounds is what they're saying. But we'll check it out. I'll show you what's going on with it, and then we'll see what parts came in the mail. Okay, here's your little sticker for your adjustment guide, and if you notice here you got this little pin that's sticking out, and as you turn it up it just increases. So it looks like it goes up to 264 pounds. I got pretty much bottomed out at 110, and it gives me a nice little bouncy ride. I'm just gonna have to drive it around and see what feels good and tighten it up as needed. Now as you saw, it's a little bit of a trick getting your foot in here, but you kind of just sneak it on over. You're sitting pretty well. Yeah, if my knees were any longer, I'd pretty much be hitting the dash, and if you want to do anything as far as like start it or anything, you're going to have to reach through the steering wheel. It's not the greatest situation, but this is a small tractor, and this seat's probably just a little bit oversized as far as its frame. Well, on the bright side, I have all the access to all the levers and the controls that I need very comfortably. And like I said, with it sitting up higher, you're definitely going to see what's going on with the bucket. So getting off the tractor is pretty easy. You just kind of do this little twist motion, and like I said, you just kind of have to get your leg out there. And for a guy like me, it works pretty good. I wish it had a little more adjustability. But it is what it is, and it's done, and it looks nice, and it actually matches the color blue with the tractor blue better than that Ford industrial gray, not industrial gray, but industrial blue that I was told matched pretty well. I don't know what that guy was talking about. Anyway, a couple of little things that I did was I had to bend this fender out. If you look at where the rust ring right here was, that's how far the fender was bent. There's a couple bolts that are missing here towards the side, namely this guy right here. And I'm going to have to go to the auto parts store again because it is a fine thread bolt. So for some reason I'm missing bolts on both sides of the fenders, so I want to get that all straightened up and making it look nice. I did go ahead and take some of the bends out of the rear fenders as best I could, but you should have seen how badly this fender was bent over. This thing was cockeyed all the way over, so I took a couple pry bars and I even used a pair of vice grips, as you can kind of see right here where I scratched it up, but it gave me a ton more foot room, and I'm going to need every inch of space that I can get. I do kind of miss the little storage compartment, but I never really used it, so I can't feel too bad about it.